gallons and gallons of ethylene glycol. This was back in 1994, and again, we're at the CLP, we're at the Commission de Lésions Professionnelles. We're demanding an appeal of the CLP to overturn the decision of the review board and to declare that he suffered an occupational disease of MCS. And unfortunately, this is a very long judgment that basically concludes that there's an absence of medical proof, and there's even, there's a suggestion that Mr. Rocco may have psychiatric problems, which I thought, would be typical of what goes on for somebody who's going through something of this kind. So, Mr. Rocco, unfortunately, this was back in 1994, did not get any compensation for his illness, and this is why at the beginning of my presentation I mentioned at the onset that this case is starting to be overturned and MCS is starting to be recognized in Quebec as a compensable disease in Quebec. Rohini wanted me to mention the MCS and the Canadian Human Rights Act. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms of Canada has been amended in order to recognize environmental illness as a disablement and as a handicap that can be recognized pursuant to the Act. I found 3 cases which are worth mentioning. The first one is Harris versus Comisson College in 2000. This case was brought forward by a student who was attending this Comisson College and was basically asking the school to accommodate her because she couldn't attend her classes due to environmental hypersensitivity. The case, the complaint was not retained, but not on the basis that there wasn't any medical proof or that the person wasn't afflicted with hypersensitivity. Her claims were inconsistent. Sometimes she could go in the classroom, other times she had to sit by the window. She said she couldn't use her computer and she needed to use her professor's computer. From my reading of the case, it seems that Mrs. Harris lacked credibility in what she put forward. But what I do retain from the case is that that first, at the onset, if you want to have a right recognized by the Charter and you want to invoke this right, the first thing you have to prove is a discrimination pursuant to Section 8 of the Charter. And secondly, you have to give the employer or the college or whoever it is that you're invoking the right to the need for accommodation, and your need for accommodation has to be clear. In Gibbard versus Canada, Treasury Board Transport of Canada, Gibbard was a librarian who worked for the Treasury Board and Transport Canada, and she was exposed to a carpet cleaner in her work environment. She saw Dr. Mawat, who was her doctor, physician, who wrote her experts' reports and who brought forward her evidence, and she asked for her employer to accommodate her in her ability to come back to work with her environmental hypersensitivity. So what the doctor had requested is that she come back on a part-time basis until such time as she can recuperate and be well enough to do an entire day. The employer refused and said that that they did not have an obligation to accommodate to a point where it would cause them undue hardship. And so the legal notion of undue hardship is that the employer does have to accommodate you, but not if it's going to cause the employer undue hardship. So in this case, the employer made proof that they couldn't hire 2 people to fulfill the same function. They also made the proof that they offered her a similar job in an alternate employment with same level and money in another location, which she refused, and therefore the employer had respected its duty to accommodate. So the duty to accommodate is not absolute. And if there is hardship for the employer, they will not be obligated to respect it. The last case is the UPSU versus Ontario Ministry of Correctional Services. This was a Mr. Highland who worked as a correctional officer in a jail in Ontario, and he had asthma, and he couldn't be exposed to cigarette smoke. He made it clear to his employer that he couldn't be exposed to any type of cigarette smoke. And the employer failed to accommodate him by repeatedly assigning him to areas and tasks that put him in direct contact with cigarette smoke. And they refused to transfer him to another institution. So on this basis, the case was retained that there was a violation of his handicap and his disablement, and there were monies awarded for his losses due to work that he missed while he was unable to work. But you know, after I read it, it's nice that he was paid for the days that he missed at work, but there wasn't any damages that were awarded for, you know, losing his ability to function, you know, to get sick. So this is just a very, very brief overview of some of the cases I was able to find. My best advice to people who are sick and who are trying to navigate the system is you have to be your own best advocate. I mean, the more doors you knock on, the more people you can talk to, the more information that you can have, the better you'll be able to protect yourself. And with the help of physicians that are out there sticking their necks out for people, you'll hopefully be able to help yourself. I wish you very much luck.